The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I am Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 231.
231.
Wow.
Wow, yeah.
Well, what are we talking about today?
This is anticipatory grief.
Cool.
Yeah,
This
heavy.
is a trippy, like when I first heard that concept or those words, because anticipatory is such a weird
isn't it?
sounding word.
Yeah, it is,
I don't know.
right?
But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's cool to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. Before we do it, anything that you wanted to cap on from last week?
Yes, last week we did alcoholism.
Yeah.
And this has been one of the most talked about episodes, like
Yeah.
with the group and everybody that's messaged me. There's been a lot. I think this struck a nerve with a lot of people and maybe even opened some eyes to some people about some things that they have to deal with, you know?
Right.
But I want to read some of these comments that came in. So Crystal said, great episode, guys. I just want to add a little something to the ending. I know somebody who goes to meetings, and not all AA and NA meetings and groups are created equal. So if you don't feel like one is a good fit, you can go to one 5 minutes down the road and it might be a fantastic fit. There's also AA and NA meetings online now. Wow, I didn't know that
That's
they have
cool.
them online. That is cool. You don't have to. I was, that never occurred to me. Like during COVID,
Right. The
what did
future
they
is
do?
now.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. And then Jessica responded to Crystal and said, I have to agree with this as I attended one meeting and felt so out of place. I found a sobriety app that counted minutes and that made me focus on the 1 minute at a time. Fortunately, I brought Invitation, her horse, home from the racetrack 3 weeks later, and he became my focus. I guess we all have to do what is best for us individually here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not sure that I would like to go to AA meetings. I'm not like the meeting type, but I might. So if it was in something that I needed, I would try it. But yeah, it's great that there are other options because we're not all super social creatures.
Well, yeah, and there's
It's
a
hard to talk
different
about.
demographic. I'm sure, if you went to a meeting in,
Oh, yeah.
Idaho versus a meeting in Florida, it would probably be different.
Even here, like between here and where we used to live,
Yeah.
would probably be substantially different as well. So
Yeah.
like Crystal said, there's one 5 minutes down the road. Like I'm impressed with how many AA meetings there are for people.
Oh, they're everywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's great.
And that's globally, too.
Yeah, that's great. I have one more I want to read, and this person actually messaged me privately, and I didn't ask if I could use their comments, so we'll just leave it anonymous.
Okay.
I talk about my own alcoholism freely. I discuss that everyone in my family growing up was alcoholic, but I started to feel very emotional when you talked about going to the bar after school. I did that with my dad, and I must have had my guard down around that subject because I ultimately started to tear up. That is actually good. I need to heal the deeper area of my life that remains repressed, so I really thank you. And when I am ready, I will listen to the podcast again.
Wow.
I think that there's probably a lot of people that, especially Gen X, that can understand the going to the bar. Like happy hour was a huge thing. My mom that's how she would justify it at other bars.
Yeah.
Oh, happy hour. You sit here and eat while I drink at the bar,
Yeah.
It was almost a norm, I think, for a lot of us, unfortunately. But times are different now, and they don't allow kids even in those areas. So hopefully that's helped some of these.
That's what
not
makes
having
it,
to-
I think, more strange is our more strict rules that we have nowadays. Like you can't even smoke in bars.
Yep.
And at least in California. And the children in bars, like, in the 70s, 80s, that wasn't such a big deal if the child was supervised, I think they would make it like a base-to-base kind of a situation-to-situation basis. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
Is what I was trying to say. They're like, so maybe your mom knew the bartender.
Oh, she did.
You know?
After a while, it's
Yeah.
just like the one I was named after. If you don't know that, I'm named after a bartender at the bar my mom and dad met at.
Yeah.
The one bar that she loved the most was called Gilhooly's, and you'd walk in and the bar would be first, and you'd have to walk through the bar to get to the restaurant. I didn't even realize they had a restaurant until I was like much older. And I was like, wait, my mom, I think we went there for like Easter or something. And I was like, they have a restaurant here?
Yeah.
Because I sit in the bar. It's weird. It's very strange to look back on these things. And I'm grateful. You know, I know that things have changed over the years in society, and sometimes they say that we're too whiny about things. But these are changes that I'm so glad were made, that children can't sit in the bars with their parents when they drink anymore. Like, that's just weird to me. Like, I've never seen that.
Yeah, I remember being able to, like, I mean, I know it wasn't like a full-on bar, but like being brought to like the Elks Lodge.
Yeah.
With my parents, you know, and being like drinking full on. There's band, they're drinking, and we're just dancing and having a good old time.
Yeah. Yep.
I was maybe like 8, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, times are different now, but yeah. So, anyways, that's last week. That's the alcoholism episode.
It was a good one.
It was good. Yeah. So, all right. And
thanks for the input, people.
yes, thanks everybody. So before we get into the episode, let's give our info.
Yes.
All right, so you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. I have a newly opened Etsy store where you can go to BeyondTheBridge11.etsy.com, and I have specialty readings up there. That's what's different between those and the ones on my website. The ones on my website are like the 30-minute, 15, 30-hour readings. These are more specialty. This is like, what is my pet thinking, or a quick missing pet reading, or the newest one that I put up is channeled messages from your spirit guides, which I'm actually really enjoying that one, and that's gotten a lot of attention. So check it out if you're interested.
Do it.
And then you.
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And for my photography, at djones71 photography for Instagram. And then my Etsy store is djonesphotography71. Why we did that, I don't know, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just how it's going to be.
I think something was taken. Anyways, but I just put up a few more and over the last couple days.
Yeah, they're really cool.
So, anyways, that's all for me.
All right.
Okay, episode 231, Anticipatory Grief.
Believe it or not, this is actually something that I just learned about very recently, like a few months back.
Yeah, I don't recall. It's an interesting concept, and I think it definitely agrees because I can relate to it as far back as a little kid.
What's funny is that it's one of those things that I thought I was one of the only people that did it. So that's why when I found out that there was this thing called anticipatory grief, that I'm like, oh my God, other people do this too. We have those things, right? Where like then you think you're the only one, then you find out half the world does it too. It's weird. But first, let's talk about what is it? What is anticipatory grief? So anticipatory grief refers to the mourning and emotional preparation that occurs before an impending loss, such as the anticipated death of a loved one or a significant life change. It allows individuals to process and begin to cope with the individual loss before it actually occurs. Anticipatory grief can extend beyond death to encompass various losses, including the anticipation of losing a body part, facing an imminent divorce, or receiving a diagnosis for a progressive condition like Alzheimer's disease. So I asked our listeners, have you ever suffered from anticipatory grief? And 63% said yes. 27% said it's a norm in my life. And only 1% said no.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really something that we all do. Mm-hmm. And it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. I think where it gets unhealthy is when it's not in a situation where it needs to be there. So, for example, if you have a parent that you know has a terminal disease and they're going to die, okay, anticipatory grief makes sense. But like for me, because of the PTSD I have from losing my mom, I take it a lot farther than that. And like with Zuma, when his liver enzymes were really high, like I grieved something that I didn't even need to grieve. I got myself all worked up and was anticipating his death because they were making it sound like it was so, bad. Right. So there's healthy anticipatory grief, and then there's not so healthy, for sure. Yeah. Some of the comments that we received from that, Catherine said, during my divorce in 2015, I felt like I lost my husband as if he passed away, but he was still alive. I went into a dark depression. I lost a lot of weight. I drank more and basically didn't care about what happened to me. Took me a couple of years to recover. We ended up getting back in 2017, together in 2017. I still have PTSD from what happened. Yeah, it doesn't have to be death. Yeah. It can absolutely be, a divorce or something like that, because a lot of times when we have a divorce, there's like one side that may not want it. And so then for them, it is like grieving that. I mean, even if you do, it's still the loss of something major in your life. And most of the time that's going to hurt and take a while to get over. I think for me, the main difference in these two is that death is so final. It's like the person, if you have a divorce, that they're still around. You might run into them. That there's a chance, like Crystal, that you might get back together if that's what you want. Right. But with death, it's final. That's it.
That is. I think for me, the kind of where it first hit, and this without knowing the term itself, but my first experience of it was at my youngest age, and I couldn't even tell you when, but there's a point that we all lose our innocence, and by that I mean we realize that we're mortal. This occurs to us at some point early on. Once I discovered that we were all mortal, including myself, then I could ponder the possibility of losing a parent or somebody close to me. That's when I first experienced that anticipatory grief. Was like, oh my God, and role playing in your head this story of like how something potentially could happen, and you picture your thing to the worst. You picture yourself standing at the grave of your mother. Which you've experienced. But I experienced that before it ever happened.
Yes, right.
Because my mother's still alive, thank God.
Yeah.
But I did go through the emotions. I've also then done this, and this is we were talking about this last night, because I've done this from the point of me dying and then like you and Marina's side. Yeah. So it's not like an egotistical thing, but it's more like I'm grieving from your angle.
Sure.
Because I'm not, at least according to everybody I've heard you read for and others, I've not heard one spirit say that they miss us as much as we miss them.
Right, because they don't.
They miss it here as much as we miss not being there.
Totally. I know what you mean.
Confusing. Yeah. Anyways, my point is I've never heard one say that.
No.
Doesn't mean they don't love you.
Right.
And they don't care, and they're not there helping, because they are.
Yeah.
It's a whole different level of consciousness that you realize, oh, that's a bunch of whatever.
Yep.
That's just play.
Yeah.
That's playtime. This is where it's real.
Right.
And that's the part that is cool. But anyway, so that's my first experience with it.
Yeah.
Was as a very young age of going through that. I think through a divorce then, I think I face it different ways now, like with Marina.
Yeah.
Being separated and then sharing her early on was very hard for me.
Yeah.
I remember that, like, just being like a day, not a daily thing, because we spent half a week with each other, and then the other half she'd go back to her mom's. But, having to deal with those emotions on every half week was intense.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's more like, I know we're driving her to the airport because she has to go back home to school, to where she goes to school, and I'm already emotional.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to be emotional.
For sure. And I really think all of these things are normal. We're human, and we're supposed to feel these things. It's not supposed to be like, oh, this doesn't matter. I, too, remember from an early age worrying about the death of certain people. And it's really interesting the way that life plays out, because I remember that, like, I wasn't so worried about my mom, and she was the first one to die. Yeah. Who I was worried about was my grandpa Bob, because he was the light of my life. And I thought, how am I going to get through life without this man? Yeah. Like, but what happened with him, because you think about sudden death and whatever, you don't really think about them getting old, but he got Alzheimer's, and so that kind of took him away from us slowly, which made the whole experience very different. So when he did die, there wasn't a lot of grief associated with it. He was 92 years old. It was time. He had Alzheimer's for a long time. Yeah. So I did a lot of mental damage to myself all those years, worrying about what it was going to be like when he died. I so much, and I have it in my notes here too, that one of the things that you do is you rehearse their death. So I would rehearse what I was going to say at his funeral and the breaking down that I would do at his funeral because I couldn't live without him. It was so weird. And then my mom dies. And it's like, this is a death that I'd never anticipated.
No, or rehearsed.
Exactly. Right. And then it just comes out of the blue. So it's like these things that we do to ourselves can be so unhealthy and so unnecessary. And I've done it with most of the dogs that I've had, where until they reach a certain age that I'm worried about them dying early, because I've had that happen. Sudden death of younger animals is very traumatic. Any death is traumatic. But when you add these things like sudden death or young ages, it makes it so much worse. Yeah. So for me, like, I just do this. That's just how it is.
There is one thing, though, that like I don't entertain, and that is the death of my child before me. I don't
right.
Ever,
no, don't. Yeah, I can't think of
I don't. It's like my mind won't go there.
That's good.
It's almost like a natural block. Nope.
That will make your head spin.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can't.
Yeah.
So if it ever happened, that would be just absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And I've watched my friends go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Totally. Yeah, there's just certain things that it's like, let's just not, because that just makes things like your death. Like, I really try and put up a wall. Like, I've looked into certain things of it just so that we know, what's going to happen, because sudden death does traumatize me and I don't want to go through that again. Right. So the way that I see it, it's not going to go that way. But I don't want to think about it. I don't want to worry about it, or, it's a natural part of life. It's just going to happen. Right. But it's like that buildup is just, it sucks. It really does.
Yeah. If I think about you going, say, before me, then I can get myself kind of panicked and really worried. Like, I think I'd just be lost.
Yeah, it's best just to not think about it. So one of our dogs, Sabbath, we are pretty certain that he has some form of stomach cancer. Yeah. Not totally positive. It's just that he keeps getting sick. Every couple of weeks he gets sick and throws up for like 2 or 3 days.
He's going to be 10.
Yeah, he's going to be 10.
Months.
So that, for me, is a little bit different than, like, if he was only 2 or 3 or 4 years old and we found out that he possibly has something like that. Yeah. Because you realize that it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no getting around it. So it's like, I'm not, like, when we first found out that there was something that is definitely wrong inside of him, we thought it was fertilizer that he was eating or something like that. I did grieve. I cried for, on and off for a couple of days. But now I feel like, okay, I'm strong, and we're going to, whatever we have to do to get through this, we will, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So I think that there is a level of the anticipatory grief that it is healthy, because it does prepare you so that you are not shocked, because that shock, especially when you're like in denial, that denial, oh my gosh, that will make things so much worse if you're sitting there. Like, if I was going, no, he doesn't have cancer, and then one day he just died, it would be like, what happened,
Yeah.
Hello, Sabbath. He's the only one that comes in studio with us, so he's here with us today. Oh, he goes everywhere with his mommy, don't you?
Yeah, the only two that won't come up the stairs.
Yeah, I don't know. They're weird. Yeah. Okay, so let's read a couple more of these. So Juliet said, my mother was ill for 20 years with an autoimmune disease. The last few years of her life were very difficult, with multiple hospitalizations and a long stint in rehab. Watching her decline and knowing the ultimate outcome caused me to grieve her death before it happened. It didn't lessen the grief after she crossed over in any way. No. She's been gone 15 years and I still have my moments.
Yeah.
I took care of my grandmother for 7 years, and so she was my job. as well as my grandmother. And I knew that the only way out of this was she was going to die. They was not going to go any other way.
Yeah.
And so for years and years and years, I anticipated and I worried about it. And every time my phone would ring, I was worried that it was them calling me to tell me that she had died. And you know what? Her death was a very slow progression. And it happened when it was supposed to. And it was another one of those things that I did myself so much misery by worrying about it all the time, what was going to happen. You know, because I was worried not just about losing her as my grandmother because I love her so much, but also my job. It was like two things that I lost there. So I was anticipating the loss of both of them. Which,
it's a lot to handle at once. The death alone, but then your job too. So.
Yeah, so it was definitely something that built up, you know, in me. So I get that you know, it is what it is when you love somebody that much that you don't want them to go. But I think that we have to realize that this is the way it goes. And as hard as that is, that death is the ultimate outcome for every single person, every single animal on this planet.
And it's probably the ultimate, as a result, has the ultimate grief above anything else. But, you know, I do relate to the person that shared about divorce and, you know, especially if there's children involved. But divorce, there's that level of, you know, but death is the hardest. And it's like, you can't avoid it. So once you understand it, you can't avoid but think about it.
That's true. It's true. And you know what? Before the spiritual awakening, I used to anticipate my own death. I worried about it a lot. Like I was telling you the other night, that we could sit there and watch something and maybe they would talk about death or whatever. And all of a sudden it would hit me. You're going to die one day. You're not going to be here. You're going to cease to exist. All these other people will be alive, going to Disneyland and doing all the things you love to do, but you're not going to be here. How's that possible?
No fun for you.
Yeah, no fun. But now I realize that's not actually what's going on. And so, like, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I still have a lot left to accomplish, but I understand that when my time comes, it's okay, you know?
And my whole understanding of everything, it's, you know, it's so different, too, that I used to freak myself out, like you, when I would think about my own passing or ceasing to exist. And now I realize, wow, there's so much more to experience after this.
Yes.
And this alone is a lot to experience.
It is.
But there's so much more. And to my surprise, because this wasn't the path I was headed down in my belief system, is that it doesn't end here.
No.
So, and meaning it doesn't end in heaven either. It means I come back.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I get to do this many times as I want. So if I love this that much and I miss it that much, come on back.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, no, just kidding. I know we all have to do it. Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm like, well, really?
But I don't worry myself anymore.
Yeah.
Because I realized that, wow, man, I really don't die.
Yeah.
You know, okay, maybe in some of my lives I've met some traumatic, sudden, maybe even horrific deaths, but I don't die.
Right, exactly.
I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a reading last night for a very nice lady who's the mother of a regular client of mine. And she, my client was in jail, and while she was in jail, her dog died and her mom was watching the dog and it devastated her. And so I did a reading for her last night about this. And she's like, you know, why did you leave me? Why did you go at that time? This dog was so old. There was nothing else. I mean, I want to say this dog was like 20. It was old. So the dog needed to be relieved from the suffering that it was experiencing. The dog's body was falling apart. He was very, very uncomfortable. So where we might look at it as like, how is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? This is a part of life and it has to happen. And like with our animals, it's so hard to understand because we want them to live forever, with people too, but with animals, especially because they don't live as long, that we do this thing where it's like, but you have to live longer. You have to. And it's like, no, they can't. It's life.
Incredible. The whole design of this, what this is, whatever we call this, life, simulation, school, every aspect of it. The only thing that I can find that's a flaw in this whole thing is that I can't scratch my own friggin' back. That is honestly the only flaw that I can really find in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think, well, maybe that's because we're supposed to actually work together.
Right. That could be, yeah.
Right? We're supposed to actually help each other.
Yeah.
And that's one immediate need. It's like, ooh, I got to scratch on my back or itch on my back, please, you know.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything else is perfect by design. As hard as it is, and as emotional and, as it can be, it is perfect. And that aspect of not remembering your birth, and death has already occurred.
Right.
So you go back and remember your death. Yeah, you can go back, but you're already dead. You're in heaven. You're
right.
So you're gonna see that, but you don't feel it. You don't. You know what I mean? So by design, it's perfect.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because the entrance and the exit aren't remembered.
Exactly. Isn't that great? I'm so glad I don't remember the entrance. Wouldn't that suck?
Oh God.
Yeah, please, though.
My baby picture looks like Tyson took me 12 rounds.
Yeah, I've never seen mine, but I'm sure it does. Yeah, and it's funny because actually now the thing that I think about the most is that when I go to the other side, like when I come back into the next life, I'm not going to remember that. And that bothers me. Like, I don't care that I won't remember this life. I care that I will forget what the other side was like.
Yeah.
And that makes me sad. And there's this weird feeling, I don't even know how to explain it, of like, I want to enjoy the other side, but I want to remember it. So like, how does that feel? I don't know. I don't know how to explain that.
I don't know. I keep telling
strange.
myself, I hope when I come to the next life, I can do something. It's like, like I wish you could put that little rock or pebble in your pocket or the string around your finger to remind you.
Yeah.
But you can't.
You can't, yeah.
So how do you get yourself to remember? I want to be connected earlier in my next life. I want to rely more on this understanding and knowledge than I did in this life. But hey, better late than never.
Right.
But I'll continue till I take my last breath. But I just wish I would have learned this earlier.
Me too. Absolutely. But that's something that if you think about it, when you go to plan your next life, you'll be able to decide that. What level of spirituality am I going to come into this next life with? I'm like you. I hope that I come into it much earlier or just feel it coming in. Because, it really sucks to be more than halfway through your life. And this is, now you're like, oh, okay. Now I figured it out. I know.
I think that, I've seen some things lately on Facebook about people struggling a lot.
A lot of people are struggling.
And I relate. But I have to go back to this is all experience. Yeah. It's not meant to be one experience of joy.
No, it's not.
It's not meant to be that.
Yeah.
It's and there's different groups. So you have some groups that are on the hillside while other groups are on the valley side.
Yeah.
And then when they're on the hillside, that other group is on the valley side.
Right.
And this keeps the energy and the balance of us as a one more, I think, on an even keel.
Right.
Because if everybody was experiencing all the good at once and the bad at once, there would be very strange
the energy
phenomena as far as energy, I think, was concerned.
Yeah, probably.
That we wouldn't really be able to explain that well.
Yeah.
So this keeps things more balanced, but it's a purpose of teaching us, what good and bad is.
Yeah.
And I kind of leaning so much more on that whole concept of the yin and yang.
Yeah.
That little bit of
the balance. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of something in one and
the
equal on the same side or opposite on the same side.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad is going to happen to all of us. When I experience the good or when I experience the bad, it makes me appreciate the good.
That's true.
And when I have the good, I loathe the bad. I don't want to go there again.
Yeah.
But in experience and showing us what we do, like you posted something the other day about trying to take the littlest things and romanticize it.
Yeah.
Be happier about it. And this is more from a mental health point of view, I think, and a perspective of like, how can I not be negative?
Yes.
How can I change my perspective? But once I learn that things can come to an end, and everything will come to an end.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre
Yeah.
when you think that before we started spreading our, our self all over this planet,
Yeah.
nothing was here.
Yeah.
This is all by thought
Yeah, it is.
and creation. One thought breeds a creation.
Yeah.
And so now here we are with all this stuff. And I've kind of lost my actual point there for a second, but I think that we are capable of doing whatever.
Yeah.
But that concept of understanding that everything will come to an end
Yes.
then
Absolutely.
makes me want to look at that for a moment. And is it totally unhealthy? No, it's not. It's normal. It's staying there
Yeah.
and
Yes.
going, I'm not therefore going to appreciate and enjoy the occurrence of what's happening, that it's happening for me now. I'm going to just focus on it's going to come to an end.
Exactly.
And I won't know how to deal with that. So I've taken the gift that was given to me and simply didn't appreciate it
Totally.
like I should have.
Yeah.
And I can apply this to everything, to
Yeah.
marriages, to the bands I've been in.
Yeah.
Like, and you know me, I'm super dedicated. My heart is there. And
Yeah.
the idea of something like that ending for me is not fun.
No.
But I've had to go through that several times in my life.
Yeah. Grief is the worst thing that I've ever been through. It hurts more than anything, and the thought of having to go through it again sucks. Even with my brother Dan that just passed away recently, who I didn't know, like I never met him. We've only talked a few times. We didn't really get along. There was a level of grief there because that hits you again. You start to go, oh my gosh, he's not here anymore. Like, how is that even possible?
Right.
And I knew before he died that he was going to die. It was the prediction. I just knew that.
Yeah.
So even though I knew it, there was still that grief that came with it. It wasn't, like what you would, like a big loss or anything, but it was still there. And it reminds you of how much that sucks and how much I don't want to go through it again. But it is a part of life. We all go through it. And one thing that I really wish that somebody would have told me when I was going through it with my mom, even though I might not have listened, is this is just today. This is just how you feel right now. And you have a much longer life, many years coming. Yeah. I never in a million years would have imagined that my mom and I would have the relationship we do now. And, that helps a lot. But over time, the losses just progressively, it gets better. You start to feel better. You start to feel more like yourself. It never completely goes away. It becomes a new normal, but it changes. And so that grief that we're in, or even that anticipatory grief leading up to it, that's not where we're going to be forever.
No.
We have to remind ourselves that, because that's where we get swept away of like, I can't handle this. Like this pain, I can't do this forever. Well, you're not going to.
No.
It might feel like forever right now, but it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, every time we get a dog and we put one down, I'm just such in shambles. I'm like, I don't ever want to have another dog. I'm almost angry at the pain. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's hurt so bad it makes me mad.
Yeah.
And I don't want another one. But the truth is that I could never not want to love one.
Yeah.
That's just a part of who I am. So I have to accept that as part of that experience and that process.
Right. And we're not supposed to feel that way.
Right.
We're like, ultimately what we're supposed to do is enjoy our animals while they're here and understand, just like people. But how do you do that?
Looking at those traumatic memories, though, is like the last thing you want to do, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
go back and remember what it was like putting Sequoia down or putting Hadley down or putting Lydia or, any of my animals.
Yeah.
But when I go back and revisit that, I see that I healed.
Yes.
That I got past that grief,
Yeah.
and another one came along that deserved the same love, and I will go through that again.
Yes.
With them, with Zuma, with Sabbath, with Betty.
Yes.
That's just part of it. There is that part of it that, kind of strangely enough, that you cry so hard, like you feel alive.
Yes, and isn't that weird? It is, and I notice that now more in my life, that when I'm at upset moments, whatever it's about, that I go, wow, I really feel alive right now.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. It's not
That's
like
the
it's a great
purpose.
alive, but yeah, you're supposed to feel it.
Yeah.
It goes with
That's
the
why we
experience.
came here.
Right.
To feel all this
Yep.
stuff. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Because there isn't all this sadness, because we're not living behind a veil that's hiding what the truth is. We're absolutely aware and in tune and consciously know what the truth is. But here it's different. It's so we can experience that. And I think that as much as being in the other side is such a wonderful, blissful place, we desire to feel those intense emotions.
Yeah.
So that's why we come back
Yeah.
to learn on top of it. But because I don't think there's a lot of crying going on in heaven.
No, there isn't. There isn't. And one thing that I tell my clients is, isn't it amazing to love something so much that you feel like that?
Yeah.
Like that is love.
Mm-hmm.
And when our animals or humans or whatever pass, they want us to take the good memories with us, not all those bad memories, and feel all of those things. Right. That's why we're supposed to enjoy our animals and our people while we are here.
Yeah.
And it all, it all comes together. It's supposed to. But I think we're not taught this stuff. Like, this is stuff that you have to figure out, or have a mentor that helps you figure out, or have a connection or whatever. It's not something that's taught in school, because it's not fact. No. It's opinion. But to me, it is fact. Yeah. To me, this is how it is, because I've been proven time and time and time again that this is how it is. Yeah. So, but yeah, you have to learn it. And that takes time. And then you have your damage that's already occurred in the process. That it's like, well, if I could go back and change how I reacted to my mom's death, I would. I would do a lot of things differently. I'm trying to help my brother Dan, his girlfriend, wife type, the mother of his kids. I'm trying to help her with this process, and one of the things that we talked about the other day is that she was listening to a lot of sad music. Yeah. And I said, no, don't do that. Right. So whether it's before the death or after the death, don't do that. Yeah. I made her a playlist of all happy songs. I was like, there's no love songs, there's no slow songs. It's just upbeat, happy songs to listen to, so that you can be in that place, because those things that we do, they drag us down. They make that grief so much worse. Yeah. That's one thing I would.
And hey, we all like to indulge.
Yeah,
we do. Like, it's like you, especially in those moments, you're like, I don't want to do anything but remember this person and love them and be sad.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
And cry, and that's okay. Indulge that for a bit, but you've got to understand that each one of us has that energy and that power to pull ourselves out of that suffering anytime. Yeah. Anytime we want.
Yep.
We can.
Absolutely, we can.
We have the energy. So it's just a matter of, I hate to coin the phrase, but looking in the brighter side of things. So instead of missing the person and all those things, think about, how heaven's gained another soul. Right. And all those things that you learned with them, and the moments, and being so grateful, and looking forward to the reunion of when it's your turn and you'll get to see them, Yep. You have to try to find that way.
You do. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can let yourself sit there and indulge a little too long.
I did. Yeah.
And some people honestly don't come back.
No, they don't. Absolutely. Some people, they have the broken heart and they end up dying from the broken heart. It's possible. But that's not what we're supposed to do.
No. And that, if anything, we're all connected. This whole thing, every single thing is connected. And then you're keeping that person on some level energetically from leaving completely to do what they need to do. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like their job here, their life here is done. Yeah. It's on to the next phase. Yeah, but you energetically can hold them here by not letting yourself out of that. Yeah, especially when there's like a group of people, like a mass shooting type situation. Though I think that's where the energy can definitely be held down too. But yeah, our loved ones, they don't want any of this from us. Mm-mm. Like,
They just don't. And I hear it every day from the spirits of like, it's okay. I'm happy here. You know, it's good here.
You'll
It's,
like it too.
Right, exactly.
But don't be in a rush.
Yeah, exactly. You know? That's exactly right. Yeah, you'll love it, but it's not time yet.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there is this element of what a gift this is. Being able to incarnate and do this as an energy, a divine energy, is such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
They understand that much more
they do.
than we do. We look at it as this is a big hassle.
Don't we, though?
And a heartache. And that's not really what it's supposed to be.
It's not. It's really not. Yeah. Well, let's see what else I have here. So something that we should talk about is that there are benefits to this anticipatory grief. So research findings vary on the positive and negative effects of it, but seemingly influenced by individuals because it's all seemingly influenced by individual differences. So each person is different. Yeah. Some argue it can aid individuals in addressing emotions, making necessary preparations, confronting fears, handling unfinished matters, resolving misunderstanding, expressing overdue sentiments, bidding farewell, and planning for the future. I definitely, when my grandma first got sick, and I had no idea she was going to live 7 years, one of the very first things I did was I apologized for the things that I needed to apologize for, so that I knew that if she did die, that we had that dealt with. And I think that is important, that if you have things that you need to say, I mean, these are things that we should do anyways. We shouldn't hold them until we find out somebody's sick. We should talk about these things before, but if that doesn't happen, that's a time when, you're in that anticipatory grief, is to handle these things like what they're talking about.
I think that's where the rehearsal part of this comes in our mind. Yeah. I think we want to make sure no stone goes unturned. Yeah. As far as paying our respects to that person or whatever it is. Yeah. Making sure that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's and you've said the things that you really needed to say. I think that's where the rehearsal kind of comes into play in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And you know what, while you're talking about that, some of the symptoms of anticipatory grief are loss of control of emotions, fear, irritability, and anger, loneliness and isolation, anxiety, guilt, intense preoccupation with the dying person or animal, rehearsal of their death. So that's basically what anticipatory grief, what those symptoms are. Let's see what else I have here. Okay, so our listeners, I asked them, why do you feel like you suffer from anticipatory grief? 62% said PTSD. 20% said it's normal as a human to feel this way. 8% said death scares me. And 2% said someone I love has a terminal disease. Sunshine said, I have PTSD from the domestic violence, but also diagnosed which is complex PTSD, CPTSD, from the mother problems. They really suck, and I can't just think my way out of it. I always practice gratitude as my Danny rule, but it doesn't stop with physical pain it causes in my body, so that sucks. Therapy has brought understanding, but not relief. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that not all of us have been affected the same or equally. Yeah. Some more than others. But you're being honest with yourself. Yeah. You're looking at your issues, which is good. Yeah. And gratitude is always the best place to start.
Absolutely.
It really is, because it's when you get stuck in this, you start grieving your own life. Yeah. In a way, like you get up every day and you're like, F this. Right. Yeah. And that becomes a habit. Yeah, it does. So you do have to do a couple things. You have to be gentle and love yourself, but you also have to call yourself out.
Yeah, for sure.
And this can do this this could be effective, I think, even in the anticipatory grief, is like, allow your mind to imagine things. Yeah. If that's what it's supposed to do. And I believe this is very normal because we all do it. But you have to give yourself the talking to when it's time.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah, you do.
To pull yourself out of that grief, whether it's anticipatory and it hasn't actually happened yet, or you're actually grieving an actual loss. give yourself the time to both fantasize it, think about it, rehearse it, and even go through it when it happens.
Yeah.
But hold yourself accountable to picking yourself up and dusting yourself off, almost as if you expect nobody else is going to do it for you.
Because they're not going to.
Well, people will come along and try to help you.
Yeah, but still,
But
you're the
you
only
you
one.
could refuse that help and say, no, I'm kind of comfortable down here in my crap.
Absolutely.
I'll stay here for a little longer.
I thought that people that were trying to help me after my mom's death were so annoying. It was like, leave me alone. Yeah. One of the pet sitters here brought this book to one of the pet sitters meetings to me. It was Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all
love
small
that
stuff.
book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was so offended that she gave me that book after my mom died. I was like, this is not the small stuff.
No.
Like, right. I was like, you need to go away, lady. I don't know what your deal is, you know? But yeah, I did not want to be helped. Like I was telling Tasia, Dan's wife, that I had this shirt that I love to wear that it said, I'm out of bed and dressed. What more do you want? And that was the sign. Just don't talk to me. Okay. Like, this sucks. Don't talk to me. Yeah, exactly. But people, they want to help.
They do.
And they have the best intentions at heart. But when you're that deep in grief, you really don't want to hear it. You really don't.
You don't. But at the same time, it's heartbreaking to watch someone go through that and feel like
it is.
You can't do anything to change that for them.
No, you can't. You
know?
Can't. It's all you can do is try and help them as best you can.
Yeah.
That's it. So let's see. I also asked, if you have suffered from anticipatory grief, what was it over? And 25% said a terminally ill person, 22% said terminally ill pet, 22% a person whose death I fear, 20% a death of a pet that I fear, 10% the end of a relationship, but nobody said their own death. I found that interesting. Nobody said their own death, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all of these things, you know, the ones that I think get me the most are the people and pets that aren't sick. And we're anticipating that. And that's damage. That's trauma. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, fear of losing that person for whatever reason. But we're the only ones that can kind of shut that off in our heads and realize that, okay, one day we will have to deal with this. But
how do you rationalize with yourself? How do you explain this to yourself? Like, most of us want to run from grief.
Yeah.
We want to run scared from grief.
How do you do that?
How do we logically sit and sort of explain? I try to imagine picking my toddler self up, or my young, maybe not toddler, but, you know, very younger self on my knee and having like this conversation of like, you're going to go through some things.
Yeah, right.
And you're going to see some things.
Right.
And they're going to feel really intense and really real. And it's not like they're not, but there's a big part of this that all is designed for us to just experience these things.
Yes.
Because when we go back to where we originate from, this does not exist.
Right.
So I have to then talk and think about the reality of it all. Yeah. And what is this design all about? But I think just notifying myself, and I think that's part of anticipatory grief. The purpose of it is notifying myself I'm going to go through some things.
Yes, it's important.
That are going to be hard, and this is a way of sort of forewarning you, preparing you, toughening your skin, giving you the chance to be respectful, professional, loving, compassionate, caring, you know, whatever it is. Like, to really look at what your behavior will be when this time comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a reason that we do this.
Yeah.
And that is for the experience, but to prepare us for the experience. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you. And I get asked a lot of times by people, when will the hard times stop? And the thing is that it's a roller coaster through life for everybody. Even if you don't see in people's lives, you think that their lives are perfect. They're not. There is nobody that doesn't go through hard times. There's nobody that doesn't experience grief of some kind. It's universal. It's just the way it goes. If you live long enough, you're going to lose somebody. You're going to go through a divorce. You're going to have something taken from you that hurts when it's taken from you, and experience that grief. And you're right. If we can prepare ourselves and say, okay, I know that one day everybody's going to be gone. That's just how this works. We're all going to be gone. But, the dogs are all going to pass. I have to just understand that. It does help for when the time comes of going, okay, well, at least I wasn't like shoving my head in the stand and saying, I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Or whatever it is that we think about.
Yes. I mean, not to sound insensitive to that, like people asking, when do the hard times stop? They don't ever stop.
Yeah.
However, perspective is a big part of this. And the more that you can talk to your inner child, the younger you, the one that's vulnerable and doesn't like the grief and the pain and the scary things, and you can explain the best that you could explain is try to look at it differently.
Yep.
The sooner that you try to look at it differently, the harder times get a little less hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think.
I agree.
The more you try to fool yourself, or play a victim of why are the bad things happening to me and not anybody else?
Right.
You really think that bad things aren't happening to everybody? Come on.
Yeah.
It happens to us all.
I can tell you as a psychic that I work with people every day. I get messages every day from people that are like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. Why are things falling apart? Well, this is where we learn the most. I will tell you that the moments where I felt my life was falling apart the most were the moments where I learned the most.
Yeah.
As uncomfortable as they are, as much as they suck, it is during those times that you learn the most.
Yeah, I agree.
You really do. So let's see, going back to that question of who was it, what was it over if you suffered anticipatory grief? Nancy said, I really try hard not to grieve something before I have to, because you're putting yourself through twice the suffering. But my soul pup, Enzo, I had to struggle to keep myself in the present moment and not get sucked into the abyss. It is a lot of work, but possible. What helped me the most with Enzo himself... What helped me the most was Enzo himself always being present. He didn't have an awareness of being sick, more confused why he couldn't do things that he could normally. And that is the thing we forget, is that our animals really don't know what's wrong with them. They really don't look at it the way we do. Like Sabbath,
No.
He has no idea.
He knows he doesn't feel well.
He knows he doesn't feel well,
but he's
yeah.
not looking at it like, I'm going to die and I'm depressed and one day I won't be here. He doesn't comprehend it like that.
No, not at all.
If anything, they understand the other side way better. So they just know that, okay, well, when it's time, I go back.
When it's time, it's time. And then I'm just in a different form.
Right.
Continuing on with what Nancy said, losing him was a big lesson in surrendering and living in the moment. The anniversary of his passing is approaching at the end of the month, and I don't dread it. I'm grateful for the memories and the time, although short, it was filled with unconditional love. And that's absolutely what they want from us. They don't want us to, on their death anniversary, be crying and upset and not want to get out of bed. No, do something for them that day. Like, I always try to, my mom's death day, make it a happy day.
Yeah.
Because it is a celebration, even though it was hard for me. She got to move on to the other side where she's much happier.
Oh, yeah.
So here's some other listener comments. Carrie said, I have been living this for over a year now. Amongst the whole losing someone ×3 as well. Looking forward to this podcast. Jessica said, I have to admit that I think about this a lot more as I've gotten older, maybe with experiencing the loss of my father. As a teenager, that made anticipating death as sort of an underlying theme in my life. Love them now because they won't always be here. Yeah. Hillary said, looking forward to this one. I've had this happen a few different times, but the first time I actually felt like I lost a piece of me. It's so strange to deal with all the emotions of grief of someone who is still here. I understand it a little better now, but man, that feeling is just a deep guttural one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Mickey said, really looking forward to this one. I don't think I realized it at first what I was going through, but I definitely struggled with this when my dad was sick, and I knew what was slowly coming, and again with my dog when he was sick. Such a hard thing.
Yeah.
It really is. And there's nothing that we can do to not make it happen. It's gonna happen. We're gonna have the anticipatory grief. We're gonna have the after death grief. It just is what it is. But we are the only ones that have the control of how far we let that spiral, how much we sit in it when it happens, because I can tell you again, They don't want that. The other side does not want us to sit like my mom did not want me to sit in that for 3 years. I was not myself for 3 years. I do not remember between the ages of 26 and 29. Don't remember them. Because I was just completely blocked out. And they don't want that. They really don't.
They understand the grief. They do.
Yes.
But they also understand that there's much more to life than grief.
Yeah.
So it's a big part of our life. Death and grief is a big part. It's not just an underlying small portion. Right. We all face it more than once,
And it is very important to point out that death, and we've done an episode on this, death is by design.
Yes,
death it goes by what we plan. When my mom died, she made that decision herself. She knew that she couldn't continue on here the way she was going. Same with my brother Dan. Right. Couldn't continue going on. So what's the choices? Either you got to step up to the plate or you got to go home.
Yeah. But the human experience is what makes death bad, scary, all the things that we attach to it that are unpleasant.
Yeah.
We've done that through the human experience.
Yeah.
If you're on the other side, waiting for someone to cross over that's just passed, it's a larger celebration there than it is being born here.
It's weird, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a glorious day.
Yeah. Yep.
So it shows you what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're forcing ourselves to go in and experience something and see what you're made of.
Yep. Exactly.
And you're going to do this so many times in your life without even knowing, in your existence of eternity, without even knowing that you've done it.
Absolutely.
At least while you're alive.
Yeah.
When you go to the other side, you will see every life you've lived.
Yeah.
And the reason you went into that life, and what did you do? Did you succeed? Did you have to do it over? Yeah. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
I hate to say this for those that don't want to hear this, but this is what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is.
And that's why we are intelligent. That's why our Creator is intelligent. We are a part of it.
Yeah.
We are out like scouting and reporting back. This is what it's like to be alive.
It's very true.
And like I said, sometimes I can cry so hard on either anticipatory grief or grief itself that I feel alive.
Yeah. Yes. And that's very strange, isn't it?
It's very strange.
Yeah. But it's true.
It is.
Yep.
And it's like a friggin' pretzel that's all connected and you don't understand why and how, but it is.
Yep. Absolutely. I had mentioned that Death by Design episode we did. We actually did a part 1 and part 2. Mm-hmm. If you're interested, go back and listen to 177 and 178.
Okay.
Yeah, I like those episodes because we really get into that, how this all works. And there's so much more to this than most people realize. I mean, at the beginning of my spiritual awakening, none of this made sense. The whole death process, the fact that there was no hell, none of this made any sense to me. Yeah. But now it does. And it makes so much sense to me that it helps me to live my life differently. Yes. And I think that if more people really got into it and understood it more, it would do the same for them too. So the understanding death is a big part of helping us get through this life, I feel.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the understanding it's instrumental and crucial in helping us understanding grief.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you all the stories in Dolores's books of all the people that crossed and said, I was so convinced that I was, and I'm going to just use myself for example, but I was so convinced that I was this guy, Danny Jones, living this life with all these freaking problems and some good things too. I thought that was so real.
Yep. But it's not.
It's not.
No. It's not.
This is all just a game. It's a school. It's for entertainment because we've got eternity to kill.
Yep. If you start living your life more like that, more like it's a video game, when things happen and you look at it as what does the character in the video game do next, life starts moving easier. It sounds wild, but it is because you start thinking about what's the next right move? What am I supposed to do? What would the character do? But you know what? At the end of the video game, the character dies. However you look at it, the character dies. And that's what life is like. And it's not the end. It's just the end of that game. And then you move on to something else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because, if it was the end, you wouldn't hear all these people going, yeah, so I was on the hospital table and I was dying. They were pumping my chest and everything. And I'm just floating above, watching from above.
My grandmother was a very conservative woman, and she had one of those experiences. And when she told me that, I was like, there's no way. My grandma, I mean, she did not lie. Like little white lies, maybe. But that was absolutely true what she said. And at that moment, I was like, oh, there's something else here, isn't there?
There's absolutely.
Yeah, she told me that when I was really young. But yeah, absolutely. There's so many people that have had those types of experiences.
Because it's true.
It is true.
It's true.
Yep.
Your death is not actually a death.
Yeah.
It's just an ending of a chapter.
Yes.
That you will go on to other things, and you're going to experience another birth and another death and another birth and another death. Yeah. And you're going to learn all these things. And how amazing is that?
It is, isn't it?
That I'm never going to die.
Nope.
But I get to come here when I want, when I'm tired of being happy all the time over there. I get to come
when it
here.
Gets boring, yeah.
And I can struggle and feel cry and do all those things until the life is over, and then I go back and I can do this forever.
Yeah. Yeah. There you don't get to eat. I actually had a spirit say that to me the other day. Actually, it wasn't a spirit. It was a spirit guide. I've heard that
in a lot of Dolores books. Like,
yeah.
I miss the food, man.
There was a spirit guide that I talked to, because I'm doing those spirit guide readings, who said that he had never been here before and that he never tried food, but he loves to watch people actually try food, like eat food.
Oh, he hasn't incarnated
No,
yet.
he's never incarnated. So I thought
or
that
at
was...
least to Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's never been in a body where he's tried food. That I can tell you. And it was so funny to hear that. I've never had one say that to me. So, yeah, he wanted to try food someday. Yeah.
Get ready, buddy.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It sure is.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was a good episode. So, yeah.
Well, we're running over a little here. So before we say goodbye, you want to share your info one more time?
Yes, you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com or on Etsy at BeyondTheBridge.etsy.com. And if you'd like to join our discussion group, we love to have new people. You can search on Facebook for Spiritual Joneses Discussion Group. That's the easiest way to find it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And then you, sir.
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And for my photography, the Etsy page is djonesphotography71. And for my Instagram, djones71photography.
Yay.
So try to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, you know what? If you go on any of these sites and you just search D. Jones, it'll come up.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So the 71 is really insignificant.
It really is, but it should bring you to most of them because they're close in names.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So cool.
Yay.
That's all for me.
Fabulous.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of this.
That we do.
Sorry if we brought up emotions or stirred things in ourselves or in you. That's... I don't want to say that's not what was intended. That's actually what was intended. Yeah. But just to make you aware that you're normal, you're not crazy. Mm-hmm. If you have these kind of anticipatory grieving moments, it's okay. Just think of things in moderation.
Yeah.
Like, don't overindulge. Don't let yourself stay in a place you don't belong.
Totally.
So visit and then time to go back.
Exactly.
Right? That's my motto. I'm sticking
Good
to
motto.
It.
Yeah.
And we hope that you all have a wonderful week.
That we do.
And until next week.